If you have some orders, which I'm just looking at now. So let's go back. There's a bigger order. 26. So Leis Daled, the Teichen of Leis Daled is the difference between Im and S. And the point of the Ois is to bring out that even though both overall are the same idea, that if something is Im something else or S something else, then the something else is primary and that which is with or S is secondary. But there's a difference between Im and S. In Im, there's some, no, you tell me, Im is what?
Similar.
You can look in the alignment. Pardon?
They're similar.
Im still implies a similarity. And S is is in contrast. Not similar. This is similar. Right? And so if we get to the order, so what's the diak therefore over here? Hashem Elokenu, Imanu, Kashahoya, Imavisenu. So what does he want to bring out? Itonu would be the S word. It's not Itonu, it's Imanu. So what does Dalit want to say? You can look at it and it might refresh your memory. Walk it through. What's the primary number one message from saying Imanu, which answered, how could he possibly say, what's the answer to that? Let's back up. What's the answer to how the Hashem is secondary to us? Anavisenu. Secondary to Imanu, secondary to Avisenu. What's the answer to that? That's the basic teaching of the Maimer. That's kind of and the problem is it's definitely me.
Because they're talking about Yer Shemayim, and Yer Shemayim, Hashem Kiviyachol is depending on us.
Right. And that's why Yer Shemayim is called Hashem's treasure, because
mass from others.
It's amassed from others. Okay, right. So that's why Imanu, that answered the big basic question. But now a nuance. Not Itanu, but Imanu. What's that to say?
Some sort of similarity.
And then what is the similarity? What does he want to remember the thing? What's the answer to? The Imanu, which means the more centrality of Hashem, greater centrality, greater focus, greater equivalence. In what sense? In what the answer is at the end of the Ois, end of the first Ois Dalet. That was the whole subject matter yesterday. The last few lines of the first paragraph.
I think it's because it's not something separate, but it's not a decision that he separately makes with himself, but it's essentially what he is, not a decision. I'm not being clear. All right.
What you're saying is fair, but it doesn't answer the question that Imanu, how this brings out not S or Itono, but Imanu. It's bringing out the nature of the bittul. Okay, don't read what I'm saying because obviously you're not seeing much. You're not getting it from reading it. The nature of the bittul. That even though on the one hand, this is what we give the Eibishter, it's our Avodah, It's Hashem's treasure because we give it to him. But this is a very profound nuance. The nature of what we're giving, these two givings, these two Mesiras Nefesh, this true bittul, two levels of bittul. This is a bittul that's predicated based on you. That's the with, that the equivalence here. The with you, as in contrast to my decision. It's not a bittul as a result of my resolve, but bittul betachlis. It can't be any other way because of you. So that is saying, it's all conveyed in the subtlety of the word Imanu. On the one hand, it's my avodah. On the other hand, it's not like you're making a decision here. That every day has to be explained yesterday, renewed, and there's a doubt whether tomorrow it's going to be or not, or the next minute. Is he going to retain his resolve? It's not a question of his resolve. It's based on the complete bittul, the absolute reality of God. Well, God doesn't change, so he's not changing. That's the equivalence here. In the avodah. That's avodah of Imanu, meaning that pointing the spotlight on Hashem in his Mesiras Nefesh. You play a role in my Mesiras Nefesh. In what sense? It's that my Mesiras Nefesh is not because I am resolved to be an Orthodox observant Jew, Chassid. It's not about my commitment. It's about you. I'm finished. It can't be any other way. Is that clear? The subsequent stages of appreciation of the word Imanu. Yeah? Yes or no? Not very enthusiastic. Here Hashem Elokenu eternal therefore would mean what? The Pasuk would say eternal, not Imanu. The same general translation, may God be with us, eternal. What would it mean?
There's no similarity, that's all on the yid, basically.
That the focus is us. We give the Oitz Yerushalayim, and that's the whole thing is your, wow. You know, our resolve, my decision, because basically, unpack it, because I don't want to fail in my mission. I don't want to fail in what's demanded of me. It's a tremendous level of Mesiras Nefesh, this resolve, facing imprisonment, arrest, the firing squad. And he's got this deep resolve, that's eternal. But Imanu, that's the paradox, it's Bipshitus.
No other way.
There's no other way. It's not a question of a decision that needs to be addressed. And courage summoned. He's not summoning courage. That's eternal. That's a huge, incredible level. He's not summoning courage. This is the Eibishter finished. It's like the king is standing before him. The king is standing before him, right? As he's being interrogated, or whatever he's going through, the Mesiras Nefesh that he has to have to send his daughter to school on Shabbos. And the Melech is standing right there. It's a question of resolve. King says, no. There's no. He's constantly in this matzav of David says, Hine Hashem Nitzav Olav, Mamish. God standing over him. So it's not every day a battle. Now is it clear? It was clear yesterday too. See,
Here yesterday.
you weren't here yesterday. Okay. So, see if it's clear tomorrow. Order 26. I mean, looks at it. Let's try and work it through. I mean, it's a stickle pulpul over here. Ready for it or not? Huh? Yeah, let's try it. I'm just glancing. I don't understand. I'm start looking at it for a second. We'll learn it together and we'll figure it out. So he just said in 26, in the Panim, in the Maimer, what did he say? The difference between Im and S, right? That S is even more, S is even what?
More tuffle.
More tough. S psore. What's the Rai from the Pasuk? S atafel psore. What's the story over there? Pasuk in Mishpatim. Remember? An ox that killed someone, you cannot benefit from it at all. The Torah says es psore, and the es comes to include not only the flesh of the meat of the animal, but even
The hide.
its hide, which is obviously
Less.
very less significant. This is the living. The hide can be removed. The animal can live. You can take a piece of hide, the skin. Okay. Now, in light of the above, this is interesting. It's not negeh to the mind but itself, but having pointed out this difference between S and Im, we can explain the change, how the pasuk changes language in the same subject. Namely, we're talking about the 70 elders and Moishe Rabbeinu. So first, in Baal Yisrael, it says, Hashem tells Moishe, you shall bring to the oil moed, and they should stand together with you. Now that implies, as we're explaining now, they're secondary, but somewhat comparable. And then the next pasuk, v'nosu itach, and they will bear with you b'masa'am, the burden of leading the people. So first it's imach and then itach. Now we understand why. When they enter the oil moed, that's the first commandment. Take them to the oil moed to induct them and to hear the word of Hashem. To hear in the face of God, when Abish is speaking, so then then imach, there's an equality. In the face of Hashem, there's an equality. But then in the actual leadership, not by the oil moed, but as they're engaging the people, and they will bear with you the load, literally, of the people. They're more felt that they're much more secondary, and therefore they're itach. Clear? So maybe when Hashem speaks, there's still a difference, but but in the implementation of leadership, then they are much more tough. Yeah, now let's see the star. Lahar mikidushin. Lahar means it's not worthy to contrast this. That's what he wants with it. The Gemara Kedushin and Rashi there. The Uriah that David HaMelech married his wife Asheva, Shaili there, whether that was permissible or not. So the Gemara says that the truth is he was Chayiv Misa, Mipnei made b'malchusay, because he rebelled. What was the rebellion? He called Yoav, which was the general. He referred to him as a master, an Odin, my lord, before the king. So what is it bringing out? that he's making an equivalence between Yoav and the Melech. So that's Moishe Rabbeinu and anybody else. And therefore, that's inyan of rebellion. Now, what does he bring this thing? Yeah, the star is on the Kemoishovim. They're kind of equal. Where Moshe and the Skenim, when they come to Shmaya, they're kind of equal. So what's the Lahayir? So the Lahayir, what? I think he's asking, what is his terrible sin? He didn't say it's the same. He's just kind of equal. Called him an Adon, didn't call him a Melech. So what's the problem? It's not the same. The same as our case. Because in our pasuk, the equality is justified because here they're coming, in Moshe Rabbeinu's case, to hear Hashem's word before Hashem's going to speak. So in that context, a kind of equality is acceptable. So there it's imach. But even then, shegam imach made al tafel. It's still secondary. Elishen tafel kolkach tafel the s, but not like s. So that's the shayla. That's the answer. I think that's the pshat. I need to revisit it myself in my own time.
Rabbi New?
Yeah.
That star, that the lahayir that you just did, is that also from the Rebbe?
Yeah, that's Mistama Dafka from the Rebbe. Mistama is such a thing. This whole it's not on tape, but it's very likely. And the star is a mamish. These things that are added, which are mamish just peripheral, they wouldn't put that in. So they get to the Maimir. The mamish handwritten from the Rebbe. The language is also clear. The Rebbe's brevity. And it could also be that the heart also is 26 and the star, but certainly the star. Let's look at it again. So he said in the Pnim, so here over there, he's called the Maid of Malchus. Yeah, it's a shayla. What was so terrible that he is Kamei Shavin? He called him an Adon. Uriah called Yoav, David's general, an Adon before the Melech. No, that's like Moishe and the Skenim. Imach, what's the problem? And so is that he is to hear Yakadosh Baruch. Watch out, that's the pshat. Okay, let's go further now. Order 28. Order 28. What does he say in the Pnim? Yesh lahoisiv. Yeah. So now he's saying here that when the Mesiras Nefesh is imach because of elikus, not his resolve. So this adds in the Mesiras Nefesh, because if it's a question of a person's resolve, then there's always a doubt. You know what's going to be. Face another test, another day. How long can you keep this up? But if it's based on the Eibishter, then right, Mesiras Nefesh is going to be constant. Now, order 29. But Prati Shnei Yonim B'Zem. We're going to go into detail. There's two in Yonim here. What he said in the Prim was There's no doubt. Whereas if it is resolved, there is a doubt. Now, in detail, there's two in Yonim. Kivin Shina Mesiris Nefesh or Bittul. Since Mesiris Nefesh is Bittul, Mitis Ina Mesiris Nefesh. To be true, to be truly called self-sacrifice, is when the sacrifice itself is not my resolve, but on the contrary, my bittul. And therefore, shall yidei bittul. So, and as we're saying, it's a difference qualitatively within the person, the nature of the Mesiris Nefesh, a bittul dik Mesiris Nefesh, or not a bittul dik within the person. Within the person, resolve or not resolve, just you. And then this adds in Mesiris B'Poel, that under every circumstance, there's no doubt he will withstand the pressure. Clear? Okay, sure. Let's continue now, Izvav. We're following, or I'm speaking in the Luftarein, in the atmosphere. Okay. Yeah, we started this yesterday. How could the Frierdiker Rebbe have said, the question was, how could he have said, we are not like our forefathers who had actual Mesiris Nefesh? This is his actual Mesiris Nefesh in the train station there, faced the firing squad. Miraculously, was commuted to 10 years, and in 3 years, Chassidim disappeared. Middle of the night, never seen again. So how can he say we're not similar to our forefathers who were Bali Mesiris Nefesh B'Poel? And he includes himself, Shekol Gam Atzmi, but including himself. But what was the answer he said before? What do you mean by the we? He gave another answer before. He said it's not enough. What was the answer he gave before? Because he's talking about all Yidden, even those that didn't have Mesiris Nefesh in Russia. As he said later, as he pointed out, that when in his redemption, he said this is redemption for every Jew, even a Jew is only a Jew by name, it doesn't live Jewishly. The Rebbe said, what did he say about that answer? He didn't reject it. It's not enough, because when he says we, he means we. Himself. Not just to include them. He means to include himself with them. Why? Now, in light of what we learned till now, we understand how I could say such a thing. We're saying that the highest level of Mesiris Nefesh is Mesiris Nefesh Misad HaBittul, not because of resolve, but because of Bittul, because of the Eibishter. Now, that statement, because of the reality of God, that's endless. How real is God for you? There's real, there's real, there's real. And in Bittul there's many levels. Therefore, he can say, he could say because of his humility, his Taki's humility. He still lacks Mesiris Nefesh. The Bittul betachlis. There's a kind of endless. Why is it endless? This level of bittul never peaks, never reaches the final line, because there's always the self. So therefore, the self and must be present. The person's got it. That's the point. So the bittul of the self to the truth of the alikus of Einid Mulvada is endless. But it must continue. It never gets to the point where you've achieved it, then you don't exist anymore. Then what's the point of it all?
It's not bittul.
It's not bittul, you don't exist. It's not avoid anymore, of any kind. So I just reminded myself, it's some analogies. Remember our math teacher, whatever. The point was, illustrated this idea of infinity in numbers and the theory of it all. At least with kids, I remember you saying. So you're going from point A to point B. So you go halfway. Then you advance the next step, half of that. And then advance the next step, half of that, and keep on going endlessly. In theory,
Oh, you thought you said Siri, probably.
oh, in theory, I said, I wasn't talking to you. No, she's talking back.
Okay.
People that are lonely, I guess this is a good thing. When someone talks back to you, as long as they're polite. So if you keep on going half the distance that you went, in the end, so the question is, will you ever get to the destination? You're advancing, but you're advancing half of what you advanced till now. So I don't think you can answer this, but in theory, not. And at some point, you're not going to move, but you will move because what it's a number, it's what a number.
But it's going to be so barely because of the.
Because we're getting to point zero 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 zero. That's
Close to nothing.
it's close to nothing, but not nothing. It's still a number, and you're still moving, so it's endless. But it's the same Nakuda here that in Bittul, it's endless because it is always going to be this tension between the absolute reality of God and my connection to Him. So as long as there's an I, and that's the whole point, I did it with you, you're avodah, so there's going to be levels and levels and levels and levels, endlessly. And therefore, the Frierdiker Rebbe could say, in his humility, Rebbe adds in his humility, that we're not comparable to our forefathers. Let's continue. Clear? Yeah?
A question?
Yeah?
The last line in Ois Aleph.
The last line in Ois Aleph.
I'm sure that I'm probably missing something, but he says there ve'ein loimer dezeh shekol gamis dasim b'chal hu b'derech anava. Specifically not. So how does that contrast with this answer?
Because you can't say that when he says we, he means those who don't have Mesiras Nefesh, period. And he did so out of humility because it's got to be comparable. They don't have Mesiras Nefesh. We're talking about the people who had surrendered. Send the kids to school and whatever, just because they're communists, and they just said completely. So it can't be for those who don't have Mesiras Nefesh. The answer is, when he says we, so what's the answer now? The answer now, he's not talking about those only. He's talking about himself. The question was, how can you say not similar to your forefathers? You're Baal Mesiras Nefesh. First answer is, when he said we, he didn't mean himself. He meant those who didn't. The Rebbe rejects that, although as a final answer, because it's got to be be'erech. Can't say we and include them. So the answer now is we, he means himself. With his Mesiras Nefesh. That it is, because in Mesiras Nefesh, there's endless dargas of bittul. Is it clear now? Although it seems though the first teretz remains, because he says not a beer maspik, it's not sufficient. So when he says we, he does mean every Jew who didn't stand up, who didn't withstand the test of communism. But it can't be enough. It's not pirish, not that can't be the answer, because Mir, he's including himself with them. You can't say he did that out of humility, because it's just two different universes. So therefore the teretz is, he means Hak himself, and he means we're not comparable, even despite his Mesiras Nefesh, he's not comparable, because in his humility, the dargis, the endless dargis and bittul, there's no end. And they were on a high level of bittul. We clear now? Yeah, okay, good. Let's go a little further. Now we'll understand what he says. This is beautiful now. In this that Torah, that Sicha Sheba Ba'Koshi Yavalkin Imanu. So in this request, Hashem be with us. Nichel Gamma Pirish Dihi Loshen Avtocha Vet Zamitons. Not a request, but an assurance he will be. And he asked the two opposite things. How do you have them at once? A request and he will be. They're opposites. In brackets he added. Request is, we hope he will. That's what we're requesting. And he will be is a statement of fact he will be. How can you say both in the same breath? Now we'll understand. Moedike answer. At what level are requests and assurance two separate things? What kind of tefillah is that? Who kitfili bakasha sa'adam? Because tefillah classically is my request, and v'avtocha milamayla, assurances come from Hashem. The story of my father-in-law that Nachama told on Shabbos. Remember the story? Begam b'tzadikim, and even by tzadikim, there are those tzadikim. Kasherheim mitzios b'dakas hakalpani, when the tzaddik is a somebody at a very subtle level. He's a tzaddik, but it's like the lower level of Mesiras Nefesh. It's his resolve. It's his avodah. So then it's like you have a kasher. Tefillah v'avtocheim shnei inyanim. Then if you can't mix the two, you're requesting and you're assuring. There's no assurance. Just like we said before in the avodah of the low level Mesiras Nefesh. Tomorrow he's going to have Mesiras Nefesh. We don't know. He doesn't know. Maybe a test tomorrow, not going to be able to withstand. And how long can you keep on resisting? You get tired. So the two separate worlds. Today, yes. Tomorrow, I don't know. When the tzaddik gives an assurance, says again to the tzaddik here, so when the tzaddik gives, this is the low level of tzaddik. Now, even this low level can give an assurance. But why? Because the Eibishter told him. So the Avtocha is the Eibishter. But Tfilas HaTzadik, Bakashas HaTzadik Atzma, the tzaddik's prayers, his request. The assurance, not him, that's from God. That's the lower level of tzaddik. Here, this is the Imanu level, the higher level, that even when the avodah is his, like you said, it means you're avodah, you're a mitzias. But still, he's being Moishe Nefesh, but he's being Moishe Nefesh because why? Because you're the reality. Then there's no stira. As I got batfilah bakosha, shelo yesh coming in haftocha. Even in his request is the assurance, which means even in his avodah, it's all Eibishter. So we have to think about this. The words are beautiful, and we get the general idea. His request is at once an assurance. Request is that it's his avodah. The assurance is Sadabitl, you. There's no doubt. And they exist simultaneously. They exist simultaneously because this is precisely the nature of his avodah. It's his avodah and it's not his avodah. And Mendel, the Emissary of Mendel was on this level. Which is why the Mendel and other Chassidim came out of Russia and they weren't exhausted from the years of Mesiras Nefesh. They weren't crushed, nor were they heroes. One of the boys, sense of humor intact, self-depreciating. He's a chassid, finished a chassid. But it wasn't every day, what am I going to do today? The Shabbos and kashrus, and every day it's a struggle. No, I'm not going to do it. I understand it. He summons the courage, and he comes out either this big hero or exhausted, one of the two. Right? It comes out of martyr or just crushed. Neither. If you met him the next day, the minute they came, met him at the airport, it's not a joke. We always marvel at this. If you met him the next day, you would not know this man was 17 years in the group. Sparkle in his eye, sense of humor, Geschmack, Verbringen. He's not hero and not crushed. These are the okay. What do you want now? What's today? They took away my tefillin because you don't want my tefillin. I got a tin cup. I can make a bracha shahakal of water. My neighbor is feeling down. I can lift his spirits every day. He just did the avodah. Came out of Russia and he's in London, and now there's tefillin and there's wine for kiddush. I'm going to put on tefillin. I'm going to make kiddush Friday night, obviously with a great simcha. But if he fundamentally didn't change, he didn't change. Just Abishta here, Abishta there. The nature of the service changed dramatically, but not him. One of the most beautiful, we'll continue tomorrow. There's so many stories. I encourage you to get the book. I think you all got it. What's it called? Gulag something, memories of
Soviet prisoners.
Yeah, anyway, just with that Bekitzer, it was this in the winter, and they're logging, they're cutting logs, and he's on top of this big crane, whatever, and they're holding the logs, and he falls into the water. Falls into the icy water. It wasn't frozen, but it was very cold. It's always cold there. And they finally got him out and revived him, and they thought he would die. He's wearing clothes. Anyway, so he was thrilled afterwards. He told the story, he smiled. He was happy after the whole thing. So it was by Fabeng, and he told the story, like, what's the smile? He said, was taste in this? I had a chance to go to mikveh. He wasn't able to go to the mikveh there. He slipped and fell. He didn't do it on purpose. He slipped and fell. It was the life threat, like danger. But he was Hashem.
I heard the gears of the story that.
Thank you for the mikveh opportunity. What?
I heard the gears of the story that he kept, after that happened, he went back and he kept doing it every day.
I didn't see.
So I heard someone bring it, then the officers caught on. They said he stopped, like they moved him to a different.
Yeah, okay. That's didn't. It's not in the book that way. So.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Okay, friends. See you all tomorrow, Be'ez Hashem.